My name is Dasha Ilina, and I'm a digital artist originally from Moscow, Russia, and now based in Paris, France. And to me, the plus in interactive art in the age of uncertainty means the sort of inclusivity of projects that might not necessarily be considered as interactive art, at least traditionally. But it also means encouraging artists and creatives and thinkers and whoever to think outside of the box and to create projects that might not necessarily fit into that category, but have some kind of interactive aspects to it, because of course the way that we can interact with art can be very, very different. And so to me, my work, Center for Technological Pain, can be an example of what this plus means. Not only because it is interactive, but because it is interactive in a sort of different way that I think people imagine when they think about interactive art traditionally. But I think that without the plus, I would not probably think that my project would fit in this sort of category at all. So Center for Technological Pain is a mock company that I created in order to investigate the sort of relationships that we have with technology, more specifically with the sort of devices that we use on a daily basis. So our laptops, our smartphones, our smartwatches or tablets or whatever it might be. And I wanted to investigate more specifically how those devices affect us, both physically and mentally. And the way that I did that within this project is through multiple different ways, some more interactive than others. The first of which is these objects that I've created using very kind of low-cost materials in very DIY ways. So I started thinking about how I myself and the people that I see around me have been very much influenced by our devices, and I started thinking about all of the times that somebody has complained to me that their neck hurts because they're looking down at their phone all the time, or that their eyes hurt, or that their eyes are tired because they're staring at their screen all day. And I decided to create these sort of very flimsy and weird and ironic objects that are not necessarily meant to solve the problem, although they do solve the problem that they try to address. They're more so created in order to critique the sort of attachment that we have developed to the devices that we use every day. And so they're mostly meant to mock us. And while that part of the project is not necessarily very interactive per se, I also lead workshops within this project on creating these objects for yourself. Whenever I lead these workshops, I always find it very interesting the sort of stories that I hear from the participants. And to me, it's very important to engage the participants in this sort of critical discussion about the way that we interact with the technologies that we have in our homes or in our offices. And while the making aspect of the workshops is obviously very important to me, I'm also quite aware that the participants are not going to leave the workshop being, gurus of making prototypes out of cardboard. But what's the most important to me is exactly having this conversation about our relationship with technology and making sure that people become more aware of how we interact with our devices, or the sort of effects that they might have on us, or I guess more importantly, the sort of things that we can do to avoid future pain or future addiction to our smartphones, for example. And of course, the workshops are not a way that everyone can experience and interact with the projects, as they don't happen all over the world, unfortunately. But even the way that the work is presented in an exhibition space is also in itself interactive. So, of course, there are the objects that I've mentioned before that are always included in the installation, or, well, not always, but often included in the installation. And while those are not really interactive due to their fragility, I also always show the self-defense against technology video alongside the objects. And this video shows this set of tactics of resistance against our digital aids that I've created. And all it is self-defense moves that actually exist that I've adapted in order to once again criticize the relationship that we have with our technology and the sort of addictions that we develop and how it affects our everyday life, more specifically with smartphones in this case. So, Ice here will take the position of using her phone, and this is a move that is also very classic in the self-defense community, and it's called nose palm. It is very self-explanatory, so we'll see what happens. So Ice here is going to be looking at her phone. What you do is you take your palm and you put it up their face. This is what happens. You see, the neck is straight, back is straight, there are no more problems. You have helped them to eliminate any kind of future pain. And whenever this video is presented, alongside it are often exhibited these pamphlets that describe all of the moves that can be seen in the video. And the reason why I always try to include them is because to me that is one of the, probably actually the most engaging and interactive aspect of the installation, because I always try to print as many pamphlets as possible so that every single visitor can take as many as they want. And that way the sort of conversation that this project tries to encourage in the visitors can also happen outside of the exhibition space. It doesn't only stay for as long as you are in front of the installation. This conversation continues when you get home or when you're walking down the street, and when you find this pamphlet and you start thinking about how it is that you are interacting with your smartphone at this moment. And so to me, that is probably the most engaging aspect of the installation. Which is to say that I think it's not a very traditional sense of what interactive art is normally presented as, but I think that it still kind of fulfills that category, especially the plus one. And so to me this plus is especially important because it's not only giving my project a place, it's giving a place to lots of different works that might never, or lots of different artists also that might never consider their work as something that would fit within this category, and this gives a sort of obscurity to what is really expected or what people are looking for. And I think that with the new technologies that are being developed every day and with everything that's happening around the world, it is a very good encouragement to the artists everywhere to try to think outside of the box, to try to create projects that are nothing like we've ever seen, to try to experiment with different materials, to try to experiment with different technologies, to try to create your own technologies, to try to think of different ways of interacting with art. And I think that is something that is very, very needed at this moment. And so to me, this plus is exactly that. It's the encouragement of for artists, and maybe even of artists to each other, to create new works and to explore new possibilities.